Hello, my name is Connor Kester. I am the Director of Family Outreach here at Victory Lutheran Church. Thank you so much for checking out our channel today. Be sure to subscribe so you never miss a video. Now on to our sermon.
Wow, okay, thanks you guys for all being here today. It's welcome to be here. If you're new to us, again, thankful that you're here. There's a lot of different things going on, not just a membership class, there's a lot of things going on. And for the kids this morning, we do have the Victory Kids program. And for those of you who know what that is, it's a program that we have for like potty-trained preschoolers on through about 5th grade. And Mr. Mike and Miss Tress are back here, Mr. Mike and Miss Tress are back here to lead you there. So if you're that age and you want to say, get out of here because you don't want to listen to me, it's good. All right, but you can go ahead and go out there. So Victory Kids, you can head out to Mr. Mike or you can give Carl on out if you want. And then also right across from the hall from where they are in the other building, we do have an attended nursery for babies and such. And so babies are welcome in here, by the way, because I always find out like when they start getting squirrely or getting loud, that's usually the signal to me like, hey, buddy, trying to wrap it up, all right? So I'm totally fine with it, but as a parent, sometimes I know that can get a little difficult, so we do have an attended nursery in the same building right across the hall from where the kids are at. So again, if you are new with us today, my name is Tim Gerdes, and I'm the pastor here at Victory, and it's just a privilege to be here, particularly as we've been going through a series the last few weeks and for the next few weeks, following weeks, just on community. And what does community look like? What does it look like? We all have ideas of what community should be. We look at the world around us, and with an election coming up, there's all sorts of opinions about what the community, what the world should look like. And people have no problem sharing that. But whatever it is, it's chaos. We know it. It's got that feeling of chaos. It's got that feeling of darkness no matter where you land on any issue. It's kind of got that feeling. And Jesus is the one who told us, but it wasn't just Jesus, but it really goes all the way back to the Old Testament where God said, as my people, as the people who follow me, by your actions, by your behavior, by the way you are, you should be the ones bringing light into darkness, bringing order to chaos, because the world and the life we live is not dependent on everybody's opinion. It's dependent on one, not opinion, but one truth, and that's the Word of God, and He brings that to us through grace, that we've been forgiven, that we're not out here to judge people, but we're here to lead people into something that is better, and ultimately a relationship with God that goes on forever. So the last few weeks we've been, to help us do that, to help us to see what a Christian community really and truly should look like, not my opinion, but what God's opinion is, what His plan for us, is that we've been going through the book of Colossians. And the book of Colossians, and the Colossae was just a church in Turkey that received a letter from somebody called the Apostle Paul, if you're not familiar with him. And he'd heard about them, heard some great things about them, but also heard about their struggles. Not problems, like you got a problem, but just what struggles that they're having to work through, and how to be a community, and how to address those things. And so that's what we're learning. And so where we're picking it up today is in Colossians chapter 2, and we're going to be at verse 16. So if you have, the words will be on the screen, but if you have your Bible app open or brought your actual Bible with you, that would be, you can just turn to that. So Colossians chapter 2. Therefore, and when we start out with the word therefore, it usually means there's something in front of it. So we'll talk about that in a little bit. But he writes this. He says, therefore, do not let anyone judge you by what you eat or drink, or with regard to a religious festival, a new moon celebration, or a Sabbath day. These are a shadow of the things that were to come. The reality, however, is found in Christ. Do not anyone who delights in false humility and the worship of angels disqualify you. Such a person goes into great detail about what they have seen. They are puffed up with idle notions by their unspiritual mind. They have lost connection with the head, from whom the whole body, supported and held together by its ligaments and sinews, grows as God causes it to grow. Since you died with Christ to the elemental spiritual forces of this world, why, as though you still belong to the world, do you submit to its rules? Do not handle, do not taste, do not touch. These rules, which have to do with the things that are all destined to perish with use, they're based on merely human commands and teachings. Such regulations indeed have an appearance of wisdom with their self-imposed worship, their false humility, and their harsh treatment of the body. But they lack any value in restraining sensual indulgence. Now, that was a big mouthful that we just read. And I'm not anticipating you to really pick up on it, and that's why we do things like this, to help walk through some stuff, to help us understand what's happening. Because what we just read was actually meant to really stir some things up. It was meant to kind of get the water moving, chum the water, and attract some things, because there are some issues and there's some problems going on in the church back then that if we just read this, I say we get lost in the weeds sometimes. Well, we try to pick it apart. What exactly is happening here? And they're talking about new moon festivals, and they're talking about beating the body. That doesn't really apply to me. And so what do we do when something doesn't apply to me in the Bible? Usually we do this. We turn the page. And we move on to whatever's next, but we can't do that because there's actually some real stuff going on in there that we don't want to miss. And a lot of it has to do with that word, therefore. You see, up to this point, we know the Apostle Paul has only heard about this church in Colossae. He didn't plant it. He's never been there. He's never laid eyes on it, but he's in prison now. And so he's heard about it. He's getting the news from his friends. He's getting the news from other pastors and church planners and people that are just bringing him news. How's the Christian world looking? Can you tell me? And say, hey, we've got this great place, Colossae. But they're wonderful people. They've accepted the gospel. They accept Jesus, they know this, they're following Jesus, but they're running into some issues. And Paul, if you could, hey, we saw you write, you wrote at least 2 letters to the Corinthians. Can you at least write 1 letter to the church at Colossae? And he was like, yeah, sure, I'd love to do that. And he writes a short one, 4 chapters that we've divided it up into. And he starts it out, as we've learned, he said, hey guys, I've heard such great things about you. I've heard about your faith. I've heard what's happening in your place, how you're caring for one another. And I'm just telling you, I'm saying a prayer of thanks for you. And in regards to that, how we apply that to our community, a lot of times when we look at our own Victory community, it's easy to say, well, I would have done things like that. Or I can't believe that person did this. Where did my chair go from last week? How come by the way, there's a bunch of chairs right next to me. If you ever want to sit up here, you get a nice clear shot of the screen right there. No tall person standing in front of you. And you can look at that. But where did it go? And we want to have ideas. What should and shouldn't be doing? But no, we're united with the love of the gospel, the love of Jesus. So we should really be thanking for each other. To look into the room around you, be thankful for this place. Be thankful if you're a student here. Be thankful for your other students. Be thankful for your teachers. Be thankful for your pastors. Be thankful for people who are greeting. Be thankful for Tony. I'm thankful for, by the way, Liam and Tony and Dylan, who are helping fill the void with Becky being on maternity leave. They're in that leadership role, that power dynamo of a young lady. It takes 3 guys to fill her role. And they're going to do it, and we're thankful. And by the way, Tony talks about membership. I remember meeting you for the first time. We won't go into the details of that meeting. What? Please don't. I know it was. We won't go there. But since then, he's already part of the church, and he's been president of the congregation. He's been president of the board of education. He's helped worship lead. He's helped this, and I just love hanging out with Tony. And so it's like community, right? It's about joining and being part of the community. And Paul's right, he says, I'm so thankful for that. So however, though, you still got some things to learn. So I'm going to pray for you, because like any nurturing parent, or you see something across, there's stuff you can grow up with. But sometimes our kids, and even us as adults, they know everything. And Paul's saying, you don't know everything. There's still room to grow. There's still mature. In fact, you never stop growing. You never stop maturing. Never stops. And so we pray to keep growing in wisdom. We continue to keep praying this, because when this happens, you're getting more and more connected to God and each other. And you're discovering, as Paul writes, the immeasurable riches of what it means to know Jesus. Because at one moment, you may have started out with, I don't know who this guy is. I don't know. Why would I want to know him? And then you get to know him, and you're like, oh, that's pretty cool. And then you get to know him, and you're like, well, that's pretty great. And it just keeps growing and growing and growing. And you see how the God of the universe, who created everything through Jesus, created you, created me. And that he is supreme. And the whole world is ordered by him. And he says hello and hi. And we find fullness in him. But not only do we find fullness in him, as Gustavo shared with us last week, our very identity is rooted in him. So that no matter what happens in the world around us, nobody can take away the fact that Jesus died for you, and that he rose from the dead, and that you are a child of God. Nothing can take that away. And you can go, well, I sinned, I did this, I did da-da-da-da-da. He died for that sin. Sorry, can't take that away. Can't take it away from him, can't take it away from somebody else. So you're rooted in that identity. And that's a beautiful, beautiful thing. Beautiful. But there's usually something else coming after that, right? When somebody writes you a letter and just goes glowing on you and things, there's usually that but. It's like a job review. Going for a review and your boss gives you all the positives, and then they say, but here's some things to work on. But it's all coming from a place of love to how to develop and how to grow. Parents, you know this. It comes from a place of love as you grow and develop. And he says this, and now we start seeing some very real challenges that could be very easy for us to just blow over because we don't exactly understand the verbiage or the language or the sentence structure. But here's some real challenges that, if left unchecked, really could ruin everything. And it might not jump off the page because it's removed from us from a place of time and circumstance because we are not there. But when you start to discover what happened, then you can easily apply it from the then to the now. So Paul says this. He says, therefore, do not let anyone judge you by what you eat or drink or with regard to a religious festival, a new moon celebration, or a Sabbath day. These are a shadow of the things that were to come. The reality, however, is found in Christ. Now, therefore, you've learned all the other stuff, but therefore, do not let anyone judge you by what you eat, drink, or with regard to religious for by another set of rules. And what was happening at the time is that the first converts to Christianity were Jews. And if you know anything about Jewish people, particularly Orthodox Jews, there's a large list of rules. We have the basic commands that Jesus gave us to love the Lord your God with all your heart, mind, soul, and strength, and to love your neighbor as yourself. And everything in the Old Testament is designed to help connect us with God and to connect us with each other. And Jesus himself is consistent with that, to be connected to God and how we're connected to others. But then, the Orthodox Jews, because they're afraid, became afraid of the rules. Instead of being connected to God, they're afraid of being disconnected. And so they created another set of rules. It's like bubble wrap around the rules, and more bubble wrap, and more bubble wrap, and more bubble wrap, to the tune of over 600 different rules about just even how you wore your clothes, how you got up in the morning, how you washed your hands, everything to not break those rules. They're so far from it. And then these rules became hard and fast as part of their religion. And so as the first converts, and we're talking hundreds of years that these things were developed. And now you're telling me, Tony, you came from a place, you mentioned it earlier, from the Catholic Church, which has a lot of rules, some of you know that. And some are fine and some are not so fine. And by the way, it's not just Catholic Church, we're going to get that to a second. It's everyone. You got some questions because there's some things that are just born in you or ingrained in you that I can't overcome. And so you have all these rules, and these guys would come to the new church, the church of Colossae, which would be considered Gentile, non-Jewish. The Jewish customs weren't their customs, but Jesus still died for them, and they still received him. And they knew then the law of love God and love your neighbor. And then you got the Jews come and said, well, that's great, but that's not enough. You still have to go to the festivals. You still have to do the new moon thing. So by the way, you might read the new moon festival and go celebration and say, well, that sounds strange. That sounds very new agey. No, a new moon is the monthly, because that's how they referred to their months, is when the new moon would come around. The monthly, you have the yearly, the quarterly, the monthly, and the weekly meetings. You have to do this. Gustavo mentioned this last week, and there was also with your little boys, you have to get them circumcised. You have to do this because you're not truly a member of the family until you've done the traditional laws. You're not received by God. You can't truly be, because they had a hard time letting go of it. And so as a person, you come into a new church for the first time, and you love Jesus, you hear about this, and then you get the rules, and you're like, because we're used to rules, because we know without rules, there's chaos and things. And so, well, okay, I need, all of a sudden it becomes overbearing again. And it becomes, oh man, if I go to church today, I haven't been in a long time, so the walls are going to cave in on me. You know why we do that, right? Some of you have said that before. I haven't been in a while, so the walls are going to cave in on me. And it's like, no, this is designed to be here. I can't take communion today because I'm such a sinner. And then we forget the words that Jesus said, like, this is given and shed for you for the forgiveness of sins. But now I need to be... And so we do that sometimes. And churches are really good at coming up with rules. How things should be. I remember my aunt, my dad's older sister, my Aunt Phyllis. One time she was, the church that I grew up in, she was part of what was called the Altar Guild. And I'm looking around, I think some of you know what that is. It was just basically a group of women, typically, who would prepare the altar, that's not here, but the altar, and put out the sacraments, they put out the communion ware, and they'd do all that stuff, and they'd make it sure everything looked beautiful and nice and ready to go for church on Sunday morning. And it's very regimented how it happened. And then my aunt had to train somebody, a new person, on how to do it. And my aunt got elected. She said, okay, you be the trainer. And so she does that. And he's fussing. Okay, amen, we're done. All right, he's out, thanks. And man, I was just getting rolling. And they would do the communion set. And my aunt told her and said, hey, listen, this is how you do it. Line it all up, da-da-da-da-da-da. And then my aunt just stopped her and said, hey, if you don't get it right, though, if it doesn't come out exactly the right, it's okay, it's not in the Bible. Because it's not. All these rules are not in the Bible. And she said, it's okay, it's not in the Bible. And other people in the church heard her say that. Well, she was never asked to train anybody again. Because you had to follow a certain pattern in a path. Otherwise, it's wrong. And every church, by the way, does things differently. But they've become so ingrained in how they do it, the other way of doing it is wrong. And we do that. It's sad, but we do it. And so the church is really good at putting on these extra laws and these extra rules that make it a burden. Instead of the church being a place of freedom, it becomes a place of burden. And then the point is that if you get lost in the rules, like I said, which are to guide us to God and to each other, if you get lost in the rules, you can just miss the person altogether. Martin Luther would even talk about like the Bible. Sometimes we get so focused even in certain things and aspects of the church. It's like we love the manger, but we forget there's a baby inside. And the idea is to be connected to the baby inside, to be connected to the Savior. And what happens then is that two things can happen. You can, one, either feel really guilty all the time, or two, you can get really arrogant. And I've had people in my experience, talk to me, and you ask them, I like to hear people's stories and where'd you come from, what happened. And I had one lady I remember, dear sister, who one time she'd tell me, she said, you know what? I've never done this, I've never drunk, never smoked. And she was so proud of all the things she didn't do, all the rules she had broken, while she gossiped to me about everybody else. So you miss the point because you're focusing on the rules and you lose the relationship. And you forget that. And you can be doubting who you are. You forget, you feel like you're going to be punished about breaking a rule. People all the time walk around, did this happen? Am I being punished for something that happened? Forgetting that Jesus died for your sins already. We forget these things. You worry that somehow maybe you ruined your future because I made a choice and a decision, and now what God had for me is now destroyed. We think about those things. And Paul's telling us all those rules, they're just a shadow of the things that were. They're supposed to guide you to someone. And guess what? We found that someone. The game is over. The mouse has found the cheese. You don't have to go through the stuff anymore. You found them already, and therefore now you live from that moment, and you live from it. And so when we read this and we see game over, I'm just simply reading. Paul is telling his disciples and the people of Colossae, he does the thing, he gives them a warning, and then he gives them a reminder how it's going to be okay. So a reminder, he gives them a warning that says this, pretty much, don't separate yourself from God by putting expectations on yourself or others that God did not intend to. Don't separate yourself from God by putting expectations on yourself or others that God did not intend. And then he gives us a reminder, I believe. We don't follow rules, we follow Jesus. So there's a path that we follow. There's a boundaries, there's kind of a rule to it, but it's to follow Jesus, not following arbitrary rules. We follow Jesus, and if you just focus on him, you're going to be okay. And it doesn't mean your life's going to be awesome, it's going to be great, because there's always stuff that's going to happen. But we focus on him. Nobody can take away the fact that you're a child of God. Not washing your hands right, sleeping in on a Sunday morning. I don't recommend that, but sometimes I want to sleep in, but I can't. So if I have to be here, everybody else should be too. No, we don't follow the rules, we follow Jesus, so we focus on him. So the other part, though, is now we're walking through it. He says, don't let anybody put rules on you that they shouldn't be there. But now the second part is this in the same vein, but it addresses the other side of the coin, where one part makes it from rule heavy to addressing to the feeling of no rules at all. Of I can just believe anything, whatever I want, and everything's fine. And everything's good to me, that there's no real truth because it's my truth that matters versus the truth that matters. And he writes this, he says, do not let anyone who delights in false humility in the worship of angels disqualify you. Such a person also goes into great detail about what they have seen. They are puffed up with idle notions by their unspiritual mind. They have lost connection with the head, from whom the whole body, supported and held together by its ligaments and sinews, grows as God causes it to grow. So remember from the first chapter, the head of the body of Christ is Christ. It's Jesus. Jesus Christ is the head. So if this is about false religions, this is about false teachers, it's about the fact that we worship celebrities, we get lost in the worship politicians, we worship this and we worship that, we worship all sorts of ideas and opinions. We get advice about this life from anyone and everything, and everybody's opinion appears to matter. You know, I just read this, and I fact-checked myself on it at wordrated.com. It says that 15,000 self-help books are published each year. That's a lot of advice. That's a lot of strong opinions that I have a strong enough opinion, I'm going to put it in a book form because you need it. 15,000 words of advice. And that's just books. Who reads books? Some of you do. I know some of you have your Kindle your Kindle subscriptions. I know that. How many times do you get advice from TikTok, from Instagram, from somebody taking a 20 to 30 minute, whatever time talk I'm doing here, and they boil it down into 30 seconds and do this and do that, and then they share it, and then somebody reposts it, and your life is just reposting other people's thoughts on something. And that's how we're learning, and that's how we're growing. And ooh, dangerous. That is so dangerous. Because he's talking about people who get puffed up. People who, they talk about angel worship, is because people are coming in and going, the same Jews that are bringing the laws and the rules, because angels exist, we know they do, but they're starting to worship them. And again, they're missing the point. You're worshiping a servant of God, not God himself. So they're bringing all this mix of stuff in, and then you got people and I have an idea. This is the way I see the world. This is how we put it together. Give me followers and followers on your social media platforms, so I will tell the world, and we worship it. This is the self-imposed worship. We worship that stuff. And then we believe that every opinion matters. Social media has helped with that because everybody posts their opinion, and we believe because you have a vote that every opinion matters. And when we do that every opinion matters, then my opinion matters. And when it's my opinion that matters most, then I'm setting myself up as an idol to be worshiped because my opinion matters the most. You know, how often do we do that in the discussions we have about someone else? My opinion matters most. And now, as a community, this is huge because this is when everything blows up. Because if your opinion matters and your opinion matters, are we always in all agreement? No. Very rarely are we ever in full agreement on anything. And when our opinions run against each other, then I'm not idle. I'm in charge. There's something wrong with you then. And we start doing this, and we can see it happening all the time. They're just constantly running into each other. And it's just someone else's rules. Again, back to rules. The way I would run the world against the way you would run the world. And we have conflict, chaos, we have darkness. And that leads to division. But following Jesus as the head, he is the head, because when it's all about me, I am the head. Everybody should follow me, but when he is the head, we follow him, and his opinion, that matters. And truthfully, as God of the universe, he's kind of the only opinion that matters. And so what happens then is that following Jesus actually gives us the freedom, because being in charge of everything, that's shackling just as much as somebody ruling over me. I am free. I am free. You know, I walk around here and sometimes it's people ask me, hey, do you have a key to this building? And I always say, you know what I say? Nope. Because I don't want all the keys. I want to be left alone. I want the freedom to say no. I want the freedom to say, go ask for Mr. LaFazia. You know, and you got people who are in charge, and you got, I don't need all the keys. I don't need them all. Huh? Only one key, yeah. The one in my office. Anyway, that's it. But following Jesus gives us freedom. So here's the warning. I want you to go home with the warning. Is don't fall in love with your own thoughts and about how the world should work. Don't fall in love with it. We ruminate it, we think on it, we watch TV, we get in our little echo chambers. Don't fall in love with your own thoughts and how the world should work. Because now, as a reminder, that's not your job. And again, focus on Jesus. Focus on Jesus. And then lastly, Paul writes about really how futile all of this is. To want to run everything, to want to follow all the rules, and how futile everything is. He says, since you died with Christ to the elemental spiritual forces of this world, why he chooses those words, I'm not really sure. But the elemental spiritual, it's like the base, what do we call that? You can tell I didn't write this down. The spot right here. The carnivore of us, right? The carnivore, the part, what's the, Gustavo, are you going to help me out? No, give me the Spanish word. All right, I'm just kidding. That part of you that just craves things. There we go. The spiritual part, I crave. I crave retirement. I crave a job. I crave significance. I crave all these things. It's all temporary because all this place is going away someday. So the elemental forces, spiritual forces of the world really only have to do with this place. He says, why, as though you still belong to the world, do you submit to its rules? Do not handle, do not taste, do not touch. These rules, which have to do with things that are all destined to perish with use, are based merely on human commands and teachings. Such regulations indeed have an appearance of wisdom. By the way, that's a great phrase right there. Have an appearance of wisdom, meaning at some level it makes sense. But with their self-imposed worship, their false humility, and their harsh treatment of the body, and he's referring to when people just beat themselves up, when people that actually beat themselves or starve themselves, become more spiritual, like the I don't smoke, I don't drink, I don't know, but you still gossip, all those things don't actually do anything. They lack any value in restraining sensual indulgence. And sensual is just what I can touch and feel. It's not sexual indulgence, it's sensual indulgence, how you can touch and feel. There's no value of that. And he's telling us that all of this stuff that we fight over, the rules that we demand, the personal rights that we hold on to, our preferred way of life, the material things that we cling to, and the people that we listen to that have the appearance of wisdom are all destined to perish. They're all the people that you listen to, all the talk show hosts, all the people who have built up vast empires in the media. Gonna die someday. Nobody has that key. Nobody has that key except for the one who actually rose from the dead. So we've been freed from all these things. We've been freed. And Paul is saying to them, if you've been freed from it, Why do you keep going back to it? Now, that's a question for all of us. I can't read your minds. I don't know what's going on in your life. But what do you keep going back to? You know, sometimes you're a victim. I keep going, you know what, you're free. You're a victor. When you go back to, well, this happened and that happened, my circumstances would be different if I just had this or that. If this person wins the election, that person wins the election. If I could just maintain that, if I could, if. You're free. You are victorious. So why do you keep going back to it? The proverb, King Solomon wrote this wonderful proverb. As a dog goes back to its vomit, so a fool repeats his stupidity. Why do we keep going back? One of my best friends referred that verse to me one time when I kept going back into a bad relationship. And he would look at me, I'd go back to somebody who broke my heart, and then he'd find out we were dating again, and he would just go, as a dog goes back to its vomit, so a fool repeats his stupidity. Think about that, though. What do we keep going back to? Why? So you might have some soul searching to do. I'm not going to answer it all right now. Focus on Jesus. Focus on Jesus. We don't follow rules, we follow Jesus. Don't fall in love with your own thoughts and how the world should work. That's not your job. Focus on Him. Because Jesus said one time, He said, the worries of this world, like the deceitfulness of wealth and desires for other things to come, they come in and they choke out the life that is building it inside of you. It chokes it out. When we worry about all the things. But when we are free from those things, the word that's planted in us grows and grows and grows and grows, like the immeasurable riches of Jesus, just grows and grows and grows and grows. So when we focus on Jesus, when we follow Jesus, we are free from guilt. We are free from shame. We are free from anxiety. And we know that we're loved. We know that we're forgiven. And we know that our future is secure. We know that we are free.